Good afternoon. My name is Darian Holt. I am an MPH student here at Jackson State University, and today I'll be doing my presentation on asthma prevalence in the state of Mississippi. All right, so the title of my presentation is The Association Between Asthma Prevalence and Sociodemographic Characteristics Among Mississippi Adults by Darian Holt, with my mentor being Dr. Sims. So what is asthma? Asthma is a chronic lung disorder that affects the airways by causing inflammation and tightness, which leads to difficulty in breathing. Asthma attacks are acute episodes that are often triggered by environmental factors such as air pollution, allergens, things such as pollen, mold, pet hairs, cigarette smoke, airway infections, and cold air, or a sudden change in temperature and exercise. So during the episode, an asthma episode, people with asthma may experience signs and symptoms such as chest tightness, difficulty breathing, wheezing, and coughing. So on my next slide, I have a picture of a normal airway and an airway with someone that experienced asthma. So the airway obstruction is caused by inflammation of the airways, leading to the thickening of the airways and a tightening of the muscles around them, resulting in a narrowing of the airways. Sorry. So as you take a look at the two airways, you have a normal airway. As you're looking at a normal airway, you see that it has space in between. It's not filled up compared to the airway of someone experienced asthma. Their airways seem to have mucus lined in it, tightening of the walls, and the airway begins to get narrow compared to a normal airway where they have space for air to circulate. So when someone experiences an asthma attack, again, is they begin to have difficulty in breathing. And this is a visual of what it kind of looks like as you're looking at the two. So the difference between normal airways and asthma airways is when someone experiences asthma, they have a increase of mucus, tightening of the airway, along with muscle strainage as well. So looking at national asthma statistics, according to the CDC, 1 in 13 people have asthma. More than 25 million people have asthma. This is 7.7% of adults and 8.4% of children. Asthma has been increasing since the early 1980s in all age, sex, and racial groups. Asthma is most common in adult women than men. African Americans in the US die from asthma at a higher rate as well than people of other race or ethnicities. So more than 11.4 million people with asthma, including more than 3 million children, for having had one or more asthma episodes or attacks in 2017. So nearly 67,000 people, which is 8.5% of Mississippi children ages 0 through 17 years of age, and nearly 170,000 Mississippi adults, which makes up 7.6% of 18-year-olds and above currently have asthma. So the current asthma prevalence was significantly higher among adult females than males. The current asthma prevalence was significantly higher among Mississippi adults with low socioeconomic status than adults with high socioeconomic status. The age-adjusted asthma mortality rate was higher amongst Blacks compared to whites in Mississippi from 2001 to 2011, so a whole decade. The age-adjusted asthma mortality rate was higher among females compared to males in Mississippi for the year of 2011. So, socioeconomic status, SES, has been linked to various health outcomes, with lower SES being associated with higher rates of morbidity and mortality from severe chronic diseases such as cardiovascular disease, pulmonary disease, and diabetes. So at the individual level, education, income, um, asthmatics of lower socioeconomic status have higher exposure to indoor things such as tobacco, cockroaches, outdoor pollution, allergens, and an increasing risk for acute asthma episodes. So what was our objective? Our objective was we wanted to examine the association between asthma prevalence and the social-demographic characteristics among Mississippi adults. So some of our methods, we used data from the 2016 Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System, which has collected information on asthma prevalence from 5,078 respondents total. So we use logistic regression models to calculate the odds, excuse me, the adjusted odds ratio on 95% confidence intervals for characteristics associated with asthma prevalence. All right. So as we take a look at our results. So again, this is basically a table showing the amount of participants that we had. So again, we had 5,078 participants in 2016. You see that it's broken up in different characteristics such as age, race, sex, education level, income, and smoking status. So as you see that most of our participants, they range between ages 18 through 65, 16% being 18 through 34, 19% being 35-49, 50 through 64, they made up 30% of participants, and then ages over 65 was 34%. 37.4% were Black, 62.6% were white. Male and female, females made up 52, males made up 48. Also, we take a look at the education level. High school graduate or equivalent, that made up 30.3. Those with more than high school, there were more than high school graduates, 51.8. Also, we have our income level, and then we also have smoking. Those that never smoked made up 53.5. Current smokers made up 22.9%, and then 23.6% were former smokers. All right, so as we're looking at the data, the respondents were mostly 65 years or older, white, female, and had more than a high school diploma, made more than $50,000 annually, and never smoked, as we're looking at the data from table 1. So as we're looking at the second table, here we see these are the characteristics among Mississippi adults, the socio-demographic characteristics. So as we take a look at the data, it shows that asthma prevalence was higher among adults ages 18 through 34, Black respondents, females, respondents with less than a high school education, and those with an annual income of less than $20,000, and current smokers. So again, these are the respondents who have a higher risk of having asthma. And moving on to our last chart, the odds, the adjusted odds ratio of asthma prevalence. So looking at the data, it showed us that the prevalence of asthma amongst respondents ages 18 to 34 was 1.74 times higher than among those ages 65 or older. So furthermore, the prevalence of asthma among respondents with an annual household income of less than $20,000 was 1.9 times higher than those with an annual household income of $50,000 or more. All right, and in conclusion, this study indicates that there are 4 populations experiencing a high burden of asthma prevalence. Those 4 populations, those 4 groups are Blacks, adult women, current smokers, and Mississippians of low socioeconomic status. So to decrease the burden of asthma prevalence amongst the groups with the highest prevalence, evidence-based interventions to group disproportionately affected by asthma should take place. So again, programs, education through groups, community groups, and things like that, that will help us to let people be more aware about asthma prevalence, along with helping solve the issue and putting people in a better position so that they aren't at risk of having asthma. All right, so evidence-based interventions should target adults with less than a high school diploma and or household income less than $20,000 per year. Additional surveillance is necessary to determine the reason for the higher rates among the Black population when compared to white populations, which may be affected by factors as lack of access to primary care, environmental factors, or asthma management skills. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening. Have a good one.